Hello and welcome to the special seasonal edition of Cooking the Books. Welcome to the Fiction Kitchen, here for Halloween 2020, and in keeping with the COVID restrictions, I have washed my hands thoroughly, twice through to Wicked Witch is Dead, and as the First Minister recommends, I am wearing my mask.
It's the wrong kind of mask, you numpty.
So welcome to my kitchen. I'm Val McDermid, crime writer by day and lesbian crime fighter by night. I'm half of the double Ds, the devastating dykes who set out to right wrongs that have been fighting the patriarchy since about 2013 or thereabouts. And because it's Halloween, today we are going to give you a special Halloween edition. Now, when I was wee, Halloween wasn't trick-or-treating like it is now. We did guising because we were Scottish, and that meant you dressed up not by going to a special shop and buying a costume, but by raiding whatever was lying about in the cupboard being unused. I remember one year I had a cardboard sombrero from a Christmas party I'd been at, and there was an old curtain in the cupboard which I cut a hole in and made a poncho and became Speedy Gonzales. And of course, as well as dressing up and chapping on people's doors and demanding money with menaces, you actually had to do something. You had to do a wee turn, you had to sing a song or recite a poem or tell some jokes. Another year I went as Acker Bilk, the clarinetist, because Stranger on the Shore was #1 in the charts. So I had a kazoo with which I did a marvellous rendering of Stranger on the Shore.
And people gave you things just to get you to leave their front door.
Probably, yeah. So we actually did something for our money. It's not this sort of hold up that you get now, you know, be nice, give us things for nothing or we'll do you over. This is a kind of tribute to those Halloween days where actually people made a bit of an effort, dressed up and celebrated. One of the things that we did, of course, was duking for apples, where you had a big bowl of water or a basin of water with apples in it, and you had to hands behind your back and duke with the apples to try and get your teeth into them and get one of them out. Invariably ended up with water everywhere. But another one that we did in our family, at my grand's house in particular, was treacle scones. Now that wasn't just a case of baking treacle scones, it was baking treacle scones and then putting a string through the middle of them and hanging them from a string that went across a corner of the room with lots of sheets of newspaper underneath, and then spreading them with treacle. And again, you had your hands bound behind your back and you had to eat the treacle scone without touching it. You can imagine, those of you who have seen me before will know that I have a tendency towards messiness. You can imagine what I looked like after trying to eat a scone covered in treacle without using my hands. We're not going to do that today, I'm sorry to disappoint you, but what we are going to do is make treacle scones for Halloween.
Ooh.
And another thing, in those days we were hardy, none of this scooping out the soft insides of a pumpkin to make a lantern. We took turnips and took a hammer and chisel to take out the inside of a turnip, to cut wee holes in it to make a turnip lantern. Even now the smell of singed turnip takes me back to my childhood. Even Joe, who comes from Perth, which is middle class enough to be able to afford pumpkins, did hollow out turnips, didn't you?
I had never heard of a pumpkin when I was wee.
Yeah. And you dressed up as well, didn't you?
Obviously. I mean, ambitiously. One year I made myself a Snoopy costume with papier-mâché and 2 balloons for the head, and I tied a beanbag to my middle. And then the following year, because I like to recycle, I painted the Snoopy head beige and put a fez on it, and I was a camel. And then one year, me and my friends went as the 7 Ages of History, or something.
Oh, how did you do 7 Ages of History with 2 of you?
No, I've got more than one friend.
Oh, sorry.
I have more than one friend.
Anyway, moving swiftly
I think you
along.
should.
I'm going to, this is a
One
family
friend.
recipe. This is from my old recipe book, and this goes back quite a long way. And this recipe is treacle scones.
No one's going to be able to read that. I don't know why I zoomed into that. No one can read your writing.
And it's my grand's recipe. So, we start off with flour. Now, those of you who have seen these videos before will know that my regard for quantities and recipes is a little bit on the vague side. But with baking, you have to be precise. You actually have to do it right with baking. You have to measure things.
That's what Prue says.
That's what Prue says, and she's right. So I've got my scales here. I've got them set to pounds and ounces because it's my grand's recipe. So what I'm going to do first is a pound of self-raising flour.
A pound?
A pound of self-raising flour, yes.
Is that a pound?
That's 500 grams. I don't know if
That's a pound.
About a pound.
That's
isn't it?
just over a pound
Yeah.
in modern money.
Modern money. Yeah. I think there are websites where you can go to convert things between old money and new money when it comes to quantities. So I'm going to put this through the sieve because you should always sift your flour when you're baking.
It's not a very fine sieve.
It doesn't have to be a fine sieve, it just has to get the big lumps.
I'm just imagining how much mess there's going to be after this.
Oh, be careful, be quiet, just be quiet, just be quiet. You're always telling me off. Honestly, you would think I was messy or something. So, that Raven's going to be sitting there going, never more, she's not messy, never more, leave her alone.
It's because that Raven has never had to clean the kitchen after you've been in it.
Oh, sorry, it's going to take a wee while.
It's okay, I can speed you up.
Yourselves. Nearly there. 16 ounces in a pound, isn't it?
I don't know. I'm new measurements. I'm grams. Anyway, that scales can do it in pounds and ounces if you want.
It is, I've got it in pounds and ounces.
Okay, so
Oh, that's us.
anyway. God.
I mean, you don't want 0.02 of a pound more, do you? There we go, exactly a pound. How's that? Splendid. So now we're going to add the rest of the dry ingredients and mix them together.
Do you have another bowl for that?
I have got another bowl right here for that,
Ooh.
which is awfully handy. Here's my teaspoon. Here it is. Okay.
That's a very good tool belt you're wearing.
That's a very fine tool belt.
I suppose no lesbian superhero could.
No lesbian superhero could be without a tool belt.
Although I do worry you're going to stab yourself on the stomach with a knife.
It's not that sharp. So, we've got a teaspoonful of mixed spice.
That's a very heaped teaspoon.
You've got to be a bit spicy in this life. Like a wee bit of spice. And then a teaspoonful of ground cinnamon. Love cinnamon, me. But you can't have too much of a good thing with cinnamon because if you put too much cinnamon in it, it's got a tendency to be a wee bit bitter.
It's haunted.
Haunted!
See, you slag off the cinnamon.
Yeah. And a teaspoonful of baking powder.
Just wash the cinnamon off the end of. You put cinnamon in the baking powder now.
Oh, there wasn't any cinnamon on the baking powder. You're so picky! See what I have to put up with, folks? I have to live with this. So I'm mixing these together, and there's also a large pinch of salt. That's about a large pinch,
So there's 4 grinds and a pinch.
about that.
Actually, I think
My
that was 6
grandmother had
grinds.
the benefit of pink Himalayan salt, you know. She just had 5 salt, probably boiled up in a pan from the sea at the bottom of the garden. So, that's my dry ingredients all mixed, and they're going into the bowl with the flour.
That's the skull of the last person who gave you a bad review, isn't it?
It is, yes. Yes. We'll do that again. Stop laughing.
You appear to have got a little bit on.
I'm going to say, there's some sugar going in here as well. Not very much. Oh. And I need to reset my scales. And I'm going to use xylitol in a vague nod towards healthy diabetes. So this has an ounce of sugar.
Well, that's not much.
It's not much, but you are going to put treacle in here, remember?
Oh, that's right, yeah.
So that's an ounce of sugar. And again, we're going to mix this all in together very nicely
Very carefully.
and carefully. Sorry about that, folks, but then you know it's me. Okay, and now what I'm going to do is take the butter, 2 ounces of butter.
That's not butter.
It is butter. 2 ounces of butter.
I just suppose it's softer than butter.
It is, makes it slightly easier.
Because I can't imagine that there's a possibility of any mess in the next stage.
No. If you've made crumble before, you'll know about the whole thing of, get that perfectly, rubbing things into a breadcrumb-like constituency. Consistency. And that's what I'm going to do now. So you don't have to watch me doing this really, because it takes a wee while. Et voila, as they say in Methil. Now, I'm going to wash my hands because they're covered in flour. Ding dong, the witch is dead. Sing it high, sing it low. Ding dong, the wicked witch is dead. Ding dong, the witch is dead. I can't even mind the rest of the words. Ding dong, the wicked witch is dead. That's probably enough for now. Sing it high, sing it now. That's probably enough now. The wicked witch is dead. Except I've not got all the flour off. Onwards. So now we've got this lovely breadcrumb mixture and we need to add the liquid to it. And first of all I'm going to add a half pint of milk.
That's not milk. That's not milk.
Sorry about that.
That's the critic's blood. You're not getting that till this evening.
Okay. So it's going to be a half pint of milk. Half pint of milk. What's this side?
What are you doing?
Half a pint of milk. There we go. Now I'm not going to put quite all of the milk into the mixture. After my tool bells.
You're a rubbish superhero.
We can stop filming.
Are your trousers going to fall down?
Quite probably. My tool belts fell off. That's your fault. Well, that's wardrobe's fault for not putting it on properly. Right, onwards. Where were we? Oh yes.
Half a pint of milk.
Half a pint of milk. And we're going to add a scant half pint of milk because we're going to save a wee bit of the milk for glazing the scones at the end of all of this. So, also at this point we're going to add the treacle.
That's not treacle. That's not treacle. That'll have a very...
a very unpleasant effect. So, this is treacle, black treacle. For those of you in the colonies who may not be familiar with treacle, you can use
In
molasses.
the colonies?
Yes. I'm thinking about America.
Okay.
Who may not be familiar with black treacle, you can substitute molasses. It won't be quite as authentic, but you can. We'll let you away with it. We'll not send a police round.
Can't believe we don't have that lovely metal can.
I know.
It looks so much nicer.
I know, but this is easier. Less mess. You're always keen on less mess. So,
Somehow I think that's a vain hope today.
1 tablespoonful of treacle. Oh, dribble it all in. On we go with the treacle. Tra-la-la, treacle, 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 trickle, treacle, trick or treat. Trick or treat. When my boy was wee and we used to go trick or treating, he used to call it trick or treat, but I don't think he had treacle in mind.
I think it needs a wee bit more because there's a lot of it stuck to that spoon.
I've spoken off before. That's alright, there's a second spoonful going in. Picky. I don't see you doing the cooking, by the way.
I do the cooking all the time.
Do you think I can interpret this as an audition for Bake Off? Are you watching, Prue?
Well, you're certainly not auditioning for MasterChef. Monica would be horrified at that mess. She'd do one of her famous eye rolls.
She's not the only one who could do an eye roll. There we go. That's the treacle. I might add more later if I feel like it. Because I can.
What happened to the precision of bacon?
It's me. Okay, now I'm going to add most of this milk.
All at once? No.
Going to mix it all in together. Oh, look at that, nice and gooey. Look at that.
I'm coming.
see that, nice and gooey.
Do you want a cloth to stick that on rather than the scales to make it easier to stir?
No, I'll just move the scales. So as you can see, it's getting worked into a dough. You work it from the sides in to make sure you get it evenly mixed. So I'm going to put the rest of the milk, not quite all the rest of the milk, but most of the rest of the milk. I'll put this to one side. And starting to work it in from the outside to the inside.
I love the look of concentration on your face when you're doing mixing.
It's the same look of concentration that I bring to writing my books. Except there's quite a bit staring out the window as well. And as you can see, it's starting to get quite stiff, and you want quite a stiff dough. You don't want a too sticky dough because you are going to be moving this about. So you want it to be reasonably stiff and coherent. You want it to hold its own. So you have to make sure you get all the wee bits on the bottom and mix them in. So it's starting to look good. Just about right. So now I'm going to get my hands in about it. And I'm going to flour the surface. Sorry Joe, this is about making a mess.
Give you a little more space.
Yep. This is in order for the scones not to stick to the surface for you.
Do you have to flour yourself as well? Oh, done already.
Yeah, well, the scones are not going to stick to me. Are they? Out we go. Still a wee bit sticky, but it'll... It's no surprise it's got all that treacle in it. Okay. Now I'm going to put a wee bit more flour on the top.
Do you want me to take that? Shall we take that?
Take it over.
Okay.
Basically, we're going to now pat this out into an approximate space of a circle-ish. My grandma used to say this was like slapping a baby's bottom.
Which you're not allowed to do anymore.
No, certainly not. In Scotland it's against the law. And that's probably about the required thickness, I would say. Somewhere between 1 centimetre and 1 inch. Now, I should have a ring to cut these out with. But unfortunately, when I started doing this, I realised that I didn't have a cutting out ring here anymore. So I'm having to improvise. So I have a superhero mug, which is just about the right size. And if my assistant would present me with the baking tray, I could put these on the baking tray. Ah!
What have you been cooking?
What have I been cooking? It's a rat! Ah! There's a rat in the kitchen, what am I gonna do? There's a rat in the kitchen, what am I gonna do? There's a rat in the kitchen, what am I gonna do? There's a rat in the kitchen, what am I gonna do? Honestly, God, I'm not going to use this as a cutter, so my scones are probably going to be a wee bit on the big side. Cut them out, put them on the baking tray.
I need to get something to hold this phone. I keep getting my finger in the way. For those people who do complain about the quality of these videos, this has just been done on a phone.
You should see the one she did of the seals. There's a big drop of water in front of all the seals' faces. It's like GDPRS for seals.
Oh, thought I'd finally got a picture of them. I was out in my wee kayak in Fife. All these lovely little seals play around where I go. But every time I take my camera out, they disappear. And I thought I'd finally caught it, but I got water all over the lens. Are they going to expand?
What's
Just up?
Slightly, but it'll be fine.
There's not enough. There's not much. We're just going to end up with
Can
one
you just stop complaining?
really
Yeah,
big
excuse me.
scone.
Excuse me. Since who elected you, Paul Hollywood?
What's the fastest cake?
I don't know. What's the fastest cake?
Scone.
But you come from Perth, where they can't even pronounce scone.
We say scone.
They've got a place in Perth that's spelled S-C-O-N-E, scone, to you and me. But for people of Perth who can't manage ordinary speech, it's scoon.
To the whole of the population of Scotland, the stone of Scone.
The scone of scoon.
It's scone of Scone. At least I don't say scone.
No, well that's...
Phew.
That would have you excommunicated.
Well, that would be the end of our relationship, wouldn't it?
Probably, yeah. Damn it. Nearest damn it. Let's try and find another wee bit of room on the top line here. As you can see, we've really practiced this many times.
It's like all of our
You know, you
recipes.
see people on Bake Off, they say, I've been practicing this all week. I haven't.
You've been thinking about it all week.
I think about the scones all week. There we go.
So it's going to be a kind of mutant scone at the end, just all the bits that are left. Just stick it all in.
God, I hope these turn out fine. Otherwise, we're just going to have to do it all again.
God.
Mutant scone. Teenage mutant scone.
Honestly, we're going to end up with one giant scone.
We're not going to end up with one giant scone. It could be ridiculous. Okay, now we will have preheated the oven to 200 degrees. Trouble with the superhero costume really though is it's not like wearing a peony like I normally have on when I'm cooking in the kitchen and just wipe my hands on the peony. You can't really wipe your hands on your superhero costume. You turn up to save the world with flour and cookie dough down you. It's no good. It's no good.
That ship has sailed.
There we go. Into the oven. Ta-da! And in about 15 minutes there will be a glorious reveal. Of course, every superhero needs an origin myth. So while the scones are baking, we'd like to share ours with you, courtesy of Professor Joe Sharp's artistic skills.
How are they looking?
Good, pretty good. Definitely getting bigger. Definitely getting that rise.
No soggy bottoms?
Not that I can see from here, unless you've had an accident you haven't told me about.
I think it's so funny. It's nearly ready. I'll give you a countdown. 10,
The final countdown.
8, 7, 6, 5, 3, 2, 1.
Oh, there we go. Wow, they look
Stop
good.
baking.
Oh, they look good. They look very nice. They look lovely. Oh, yes. I think they're the business. And see, it's not just one massive scone, Joe. You were wrong. Yep. I'm going to put these on the tray to cool down. Jings. What a name. These are hot. They're too hot to finish them off as well at the moment. The scones are cooling, but meanwhile, I can't hang about here all day. I have to get back to my day job. So I've written a few paragraphs and now I've come back and it's time for the magic. Izzy Wizzy, let's get busy! Whoa, that's amazing! So happy Halloween everybody, obey the rules, stay safe, wash your hands, have a great time anyway.